more systematic and logical way. To do that, you need to understand the Einstein's theory of special relativity. It is a little bit technical, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible there. Einstein's theory of relativity was introduced, his theory in 1905. It basically shows a connection between motion and time. So it's a very interesting concept, which may not be easy to grasp sometime, but it is a fact. Wherever there's motion, time slows down. It is a fact. Faster you go, slower the time. So if you start walking, your time slows down, but the time slows down by such a small amount that you will never notice it. It might take you, it's just impossible to notice, but time will slow down. Even if you start running, your time will slow down further, but it's so small, you will not make a difference there. But if you start going towards this as a percentage of the speed of light, you'll start making a difference there. And once you reach the speed of light, interestingly, time comes to a standstill completely. So that's the some of the outcomes of this theory. Just to summarize again, wherever there's motion, time slows down. It may not be an easy concept to grasp, because we always think the time is ticking at a steady space, but that's not what this theory says. It says, but for our day-to-day life, it makes no difference because the time slowing down is so small. But at the speed of light, time comes to a standstill there. And once at the speed of light, infinite energy is required to achieve the speed of light. To explain this theory, Einstein always loved to have thought experiments. So, because since it's impossible to have anything in this universe to reach anywhere close to the speed of light, so he always had a thought experiment to explain his theory, basically. So he thought about two twin brothers. One twin brother went in a rocket, and the other twin brother was on Earth. And the twin brother both had their clocks, respective clocks. One had the clock in the rocket, and one clock obviously with him on Earth. And they both, the guy in the rocket went at 80% speed of light. He was traveling in the rocket there, and then he traveled around and came back, and he found out his clock showed he's traveled for 6 years. But the person on Earth, his twin brother, saw his clock, and he found out the clock has traveled 10 years, sorry. So you can see, because of the speed of light, because of the motion, his time slowed down as such. So next time his brother goes on a much faster rocket, he goes at 99.99% speed of light. At this speed of light, and the Earth, he travels and comes back, and the Earth clock shows he's traveled for 10 years. But the rocket clock says only traveled for 50 days. His time has become so slow that he only has traveled for 50 days. So these are the very interesting concept of theory of relativity, which sometimes is not easy to grasp, but just to understand that wherever there's motion, time slows down. The faster the motion, time slows down further. And if you reach the speed of light, then the rocket clock doesn't move at all. They feel he's not moved at all. He has 0 days. He's saying he's not traveled, but your Earth clock will show 10 years when you're going in the speed of light. So let's try to understand the implication of this. The only thing which travels at a speed of light in this universe is photons. I think everyone knows that the photon is the only particle which travels at the speed of light. There's nothing else in the universe which travels at the speed of light. So if you, for example, put a camera on a photon, and what would the photon, that camera see? This is just a thought experiment. Obviously, you can't put a camera on a photon. What will the photon see? From the observer's point of view, who's watching the photon, exactly the same way, when the observer is watching the rocket going at the speed, he thinks he's traveled for 10 years. But the rocket guy, person thinks he's not traveled at all. Using the same logic here, if the observer looks at the photon, he looks at the photon and sees the photon has traveled for 10 light years there. The time taken is 10 years. The speed of light is 0. But what does the photon do? Photon experience, because photon at the speed of light, he has no time. The time doesn't move, and he has no distance is not traveled. He is standstill. He is not moved at all from the photon's point of view. If you take the photon as a he, from the photon's point of view, photon does not travel at all. But the photon has infinite energy. That is, whenever you have anything speed of light, you have infinite energy. That's a formula which has been proven. So the energy content is infinity. So where is this point? So from the photon's point of view, there's no movement, there is no time, no space. So where is the point? But the observer, just to first point, the observer sees the photon zipping around the speed of light. But according to the photon, he sees no movement at all. Because the photon sees, if you have the camera will show that there's no time, there's no space. For anything traveling the speed of light, there's no time, there's no space. And it has infinite energy. So where is the point in the universe where there is no time, there is no space? You can't just think about it. There's no place in the universe out there. There's no time, no space. Everything outside has space and time. The only place where there is no space and time is once again your inner core. So this the photon, according to the photon, it is not moving at all. It has the infinite energy within the what you call inner core as such. So inner core itself has infinite energy because of this fact. But the observer feels the photon is zipping around at speed of light. Can you imagine the illusion which is taking place? You think the photon is traveling around at the speed of light, but the photon thinks that I have not traveled at all. Photon thinks I have no what you call there's no space and time. Always sitting in what you call outside space and time, and with infinite energy. So what does no time and no space mean? It means the photon is outside the space and time. The only thing outside space and time is your inner core, and this infinite energy resides within your inner core. So once again, we see the power of the inner core. It has that infinite